once again in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior and our Redeemer. Greetings from the Commandment Keepers for Christ's Kingdom here in Santa Rosa, California. Today our topic will try to expose another deception in the in Christianity today about this Easter that we are currently, the season of Easter that we are currently going through. The deception that has flooded the Christian world of today. And one of them is the Easter, the story about Christ's death on the cross and his resurrection. So that's the topic we will cover today, and we hope that the Holy Spirit will help us in our understanding of the topic. Easter deception. This is what the world describes Easter as, and can be found in the Wikipedia. Easter, also called Parash, that's the Jewish word for this time period, or Resurrection Sunday, is a festival and a holiday celebrating the resurrection of Jesus Christ from his death. Described in the New Testament as having occurred on the third day of his burial after his crucifixion. I know we all know about that story. He died on the Friday and he resurrected on the third day after his death. Third day of his burial after his crucifixion by the Romans at Calvary at 30-31 AD. It is the culmination of the Passion of Christ, preceded by Lent or Great Lent, a 40-day period of fasting, prayer, and penance. Lent, that's another teaching that the Christian world has taken up today. So all we're trying to do is to see whether all these new teachings that have flooded Christianity of today, are they really biblical? Were they from God? So our main reference is the Bible. Amen. We'll see what the world has taught us, and we'll see what the Bible says about it. So it's to do with Sunday worship. The Easter traditional day of Jesus' resurrection is the reason given for Sunday worship. The whole Christian world today worship on the Sunday. And what is their main reason? Because Jesus was resurrected on this day, on the first day of the week. Can you see the big, how it has affected the whole of Christianity? Sunday is being, the solemnity of the day has been transferred from the seventh day of the week to the first day. The reason? Christ was resurrected on this day. Is that biblical? No. We'll find out. The Jesuit influence on Easter celebration. We've also been covering this group, the Jesuit, the formation of this Jesuit group to counter the Reformation of the 1500s, early 1500s, when the reformers began to teach and started pointing back at Rome. They were trying to identify who the Antichrist was. And we'll see how this group of people influenced this. Jesuit astronomer Christopher Clavis, he created the Gregorian calendar. That's the calendar we use today. But he did not lose any day from the previously used Julian calendar. We'll dig a little deeper into that. But that's a good thing to research on if you are into researching some of these things. look into the Gregorian and the Julian calendar and the Jewish calendar to find out about their history. These are the two calendars. I just I tried to compare the two different calendars. The Julian, which was used because of that man. This is well known in history, Julius Caesar. And during his time, this was introduced, the Julian calendar. And you see days of number of days in a month. But in 1582, if you do your own research, you'll still find this out. Because of this man, Pope Gregory XIII, in 1582, he introduced a new calendar, and it was put together by that Jesuit priest. What was his name? Christopher Columbus. And you see that he now has put in here the days of the month was from 1 to 31. And here he began to put it back into the 7-day calendar. And he identified that the first day was Sunday, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the the 7th day was Saturday. But you see, this is what he did. In 1582, if we would have changed this year to 1582, you'll see that the 4th day was Thursday, was a Thursday. And he skipped a few days until the 15th. And 15th was a Friday, and 16th. That's where the new calendar started on from. 1582, and this month was October. That's when he rearranged the days. But you see that the days were not changed. The numbers were changed, the numbering of the days. But the day remained first day of the week, second day of the week, third, fourth, until the 7th day. Or Sunday to Saturday as we know it today. So that's the beginning of the calendar we use today, the Gregorian calendar. And it started in 1582. You recognize that year? 1582. It's around the area when the Reformation started. What year the Reformation started officially? During Martin Luther's days, 1517, when he challenged the Roman Church by nailing his thesis to the wall of the Wittenberg Church in Germany. 1517, you see the formation of the Jesuits. Right after that, to counter the Reformation, 1517, this calendar came up in 1582, about 50 years right after that. They were going to change the work of the reformers of those days. That's the Gregorian calendar again. Julius Caesar, the Julian calendar, has now been changed through this to the Gregorian calendar by Pope Gregory XIII. Ishtar. Let's jump into Ishtar. We don't find the word Ishtar in the Bible. This is where it originated from. Ishtar. Ishtar is the goddess of fertility, love, war, and sex. That's the lady Ishtar. So she is the goddess of fertility, love, war, and sex. Why should we know that? We'll find out. That's where these come in today. Yeah? Today, you go into the shops, you'll see all these bunnies and eggs, Easter eggs. What are they to do with the biblical teachings? We don't find any of this in the Bible. It's because of Ishtar, the goddess of fertility. Let's just read what the Wikipedia says about this Easter, the bunnies and hares. The hare was a popular motif in medieval church art. So it was introduced into the church. In the ancient times, it was widely believed as that the hare was a hermaphrodite. You can look up what that means. The idea that a hare could reproduce without loss of virginity. Notice the use of the keywords. Virginity. What comes after that? Virgin Mary. You see? From virginity of a hare, the next thing is, now we're talking about Virgin Mary. Wow. This is the work of the Jesuit to counter the Reformation. Reproduced without the loss of virginity led to an association with the Virgin Mary, with hares sometimes occurring in illuminated streets and Northern European paintings of the Virgin and Christ child. It may also have been associated with the Holy Trinity, the hare and the Holy Trinity. Just imagine that. As in the three hares motif. Eggs, like rabbits and hares, are fertility symbols of antiquity. Since birds lay eggs and rabbits and hares give birth to large litters in the very early spring, these became symbols of the rising fertility of the earth at the vernal equinox. So you see, because of Ishtar, who was the goddess of fertility, sex, and war, they brought Ishtar in and baptized Ishtar as the Easter's celebration of Ishtar as Easter, and then brought it into the Christian church to celebrate Easter, the death of Christ. And so now the death of Christ is being linked with bunnies because of the fertility that was represented by the goddess Ishtar. Such confusion that's accepted by the churches of today. You can just imagine that. Our church leaders accept this and no one is questioning them. Questioning, where did these teachings come from? It's not from the Bible. We don't read of any hares or rabbits or bunnies in the Bible. How come Christianity of today has accepted all this garbage? And the whole Christian world is accepting this. And I hope that this group, the commandment keepers, will not be deceived by this worldly teaching introduced into our churches of today. We now have three things associated with Easter. One, the resurrection took place on the first day of the week through that Gregorian calendar by Pope Gregory in the change that was done in 1582 has now placed Sunday as the first day of the week, which is right. And so that's one thing, at least it's been put into its right spot. Secondly, the use of the pagan goddess, Ishtar, something that was all pagan, brought into the Christian church and baptized as something that was accepted by the church. And with that is introduced the fertility. And with the fertility, we know that's how we see bunnies in churches today. If you go to Christian churches of today, you'll see that. You'll see eggs right there in the pulpit. And it's because of Ishtar, the pagan goddess of fertility, of sex, of war and all, has been brought into our Christian world. And thirdly, Ishtar was a goddess of fertility, Bunnies were used to depict the characteristic of Easter within Christianity. So all these have been brought into the teachings which are not found in the Bible. Why are we still accepting it? Why are we entertaining such falsity in our Christian worship? What calendar was used by the Bible writers? Okay, we've talked about the Julian calendar, we've talked about the Gregorian calendar, which was made by a man. Well, this was the calendar that was used by the Jewish of that time, and they were using this. You'll notice that this first month of Nisan, that's mentioned quite a few times in the Bible, huh? Nisan. I think there's another, just looking for, there's another one that there's Tammuz. Yeah, but it was this one that was mentioned quite a few times on the 14th day of Nisan. And Nisan is the first month of the Jewish calendar. It's the first month, like generally in the Gregorian calendar. So it's the first month, and that falls in the March-April of today's calendar. So this was happening when it talks about Nisan. It's talking about sometime in that area, between March and April, that 30-day period. So this is the calendar that the Jewish writers, the Bible writers were writing about when they mentioned the month of Nisan and the other months. This is the calendar that they were using, not the Gregorian or the Julian calendar. Outlaw of Passover. Pure Christianity never observed these pagan festivals. The reformers never observed this Easter. They all used them as a basis of when to worship. They celebrated the Passover, which was removed at the Council of Nicaea by Constantine in the 4th century. So Christianity was celebrating Passover. Do you remember the Passover, the original origin of Passover? When the Israelites were in Egypt, they were about to leave. They were told, kill a lamb, take the blood, paint the door of your houses. And when the visiting angel comes in, he'll see that blood, he will pass over your house. The task of that angel was to kill all the firstborn of Egypt. So anyone with that blood on the door was spared. That's a Passover. So the Christianity of those days was celebrating Passover. Remember, this is after Christ. And what do you know about what happened at the cross? Okay, we'll go back to that a little later. So this man Constantine, we've mentioned his name quite a lot in our prophecy studies. He decreed the outlawing of the observance of Passover, removed that celebration, and introduced Easter. This man is very influential in what Christianity of today is. This man. Remember, he is alive in the 4th century. That was before the 1260 year period when the Pope of Rome was in control, from 538 to 1798. This was before that. Now let's turn to the Bible. Let's use the calendar that we talked about to try and unravel some of the truths. This is found in Leviticus. Oh, I didn't put it up there. Leviticus chapter 23. Let's just read together. Chapter 23, verses 1 to 3. 2, 3.
And
the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest, and holy convocation. Ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. The Sabbath of the Lord, where? In all your dwellings, inside your own homes. That's different from the fourth commandment, eh? Notice too, what are these? Concerning the feasts of the Lord. So, it's talking about the Sabbath. But is it the 7th day Sabbath that we know of? No, it's not, eh? So, remember, we've already talked about Colossians 2. It's talking about the removal of some of the Sabbath that were nailed to the cross of Jesus. So here are some Sabbath being mentioned, which is not the same as the 7th day Sabbath of the 10 Commandments. Can you should realize here that when they were talking about some of the Sabbath being nailed to the cross, these are some of the Sabbaths that they were talking about. Mentioned here in Leviticus. They had already had their 7-day weekly sequence. Day 1, day 2, day 7, 1 Sabbath. Every 7th day was Sabbath. These are other Sabbath days they're talking about. And these Sabbath days represent feasts. It's to do with eating. Let's read verse 5 till verse... this is the Passover. Okay, read verse 5 to 8, 2, 3. In the 14th day of the first month, and even is the Lord's. So the Passover will come on the 14th day of that month, Nisan. Verse 6, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. So this Passover involves a feast. It's not a day like the 7-day Sabbath that we know of in the 4th commandment. Verse 7. In the first day you shall have an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. Even the first day, that will be a Sabbath, because you're not allowed to do any work. It's a Sabbath. Verse 8. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. In the 7th day is a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work. So that first 7 days, every day they should sacrifice. On the 7th day is another Sabbath. So you see, new Sabbaths have been reintroduced, have been introduced to the people, so that they may be looking forward to what is to come. So these days, as we've said, are the Sabbath days that were nailed to the cross when Jesus died. Is that? Yeah. Well, Nisan is the first month of the year. That's the Jewish calendar. In Exodus chapter 12, verses 3 to 7, it says, "Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying," this is in preparation to the Passover, "On the 10th day of the month, they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house." So each house has to go and get a lamb and to prepare. On what day? On the 10th day of that first month, Nisan, the 10th day. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. You see where the feast comes in? All these houses were to come up with a lamb, and they were going to prepare for a feast. Verse 5 says, "Your lamb shall be without blemish." So this lamb is a special lamb. This lamb should not, no sickness, no nothing. It should be without blemish. It should be male of the first year. It should be not older than 1 year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it up until which day? The 14th day of the same month. So bring the lamb in on the 10th and fatten it up for 4 days until the 14th day. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it on the evening of that 14th day. So the lamb, all the households of Israel should go get a lamb without blemish, keep it there for 4 days, and on the 14th day in the evening, they were going to kill it. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper doorpost of the house, wherein they shall eat it. So this celebration was for a feast, and it involves a lamb without blemish. Does not that ring a bell? Who that lamb is? This was preparing for the Passover. Passover is that angel who's coming to with the wrath of God. And without the blood of that lamb, everyone will face that wrath. When they were about to get into Canaan. So we've been talking about the time they were in Egypt. They were about to leave Egypt to get into Canaan. This is 40 years later, because they left Egypt and they came and they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years later, they are about to enter Canaan. Let's read what it says. Recorded by Joshua. Verse 19 says, "And the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month." Do you see any similarity there now? On the 10th day of the first month. What happened in Egypt? On the 10th day, what were they supposed to do? Go get a lamb. Keep it for 4 days. On the 10th day of the first month, they are about to cross into Jordan. And camp in Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. Verse 10 says, verse 10 of the next chapter, chapter 5. "And the children of Israel encamped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at evening in the plains of Jericho." What they did 40 years earlier in Egypt, now they were celebrating the same thing right there in the borders into Jericho. On the 14th day of the month, they were going they were keeping the Passover celebration. Verse 11 said, and they did eat of the old corn of the land on the morrow of the Passover, unleavened cake, and parched corn in the self-same day. Verse 12, and the manna ceased on the morrow. 40 years, when they were in the wilderness, every day, what happened? Manna came, and they were eating of that manna. On the 40th day, when they were about to cross into the promised land, they celebrated Passover. The very next day, on the 15th day, what happened? They went out to look for manna. Was it there? No more. Because God has opened them there. This new land, whatever those people have planted, it's yours now. Take over the land. It's all yours. Whatever houses they've already built is yours now. So we see, we've been looking at the similarity of things that have happened there in Egypt, and then we move into Jericho as they cross over into Canaan. The same thing. The next thing for us to do is to look at the crucifixion of Christ. We'll have to look at the dates this happened and what they were celebrating at that very time. Remember when they were in Jerusalem at that time, what was happening in Jerusalem? People who were coming over from all over Asia Minor into Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. There's a link there. Unfortunately, you can see that the devil has worked out to cut his presentation short. But we'll continue next week. I just want us to think back at what we are celebrating today in regarding this Easter celebration. Then start thinking of what happened in Egypt, what happened 40 years later as they crossed into Canaan, and next week we'll look at how it's linked to the crucifixion at the cross in Jerusalem. And we'll put all these together, and then we'll find out where does this bunny and the Easter and the name and all these deceptions have come from. We'll put all this together next week. Let us pray.